Hey guys, what's up? My name's Jason, and today I'm going to be giving you a tutorial on how to create 2D game graphics in Photoshop. Now this video is going to show you how to start creating this background that you see right here. It's part of an entire course that I have, and today I'm going to be giving it away for free. You're not going to pay a dime for it. All you have to do is click on the link in the description and it'll take you straight to the page, and you'll just enroll in it and you'll have it for free. It's my gift from me to you. So let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. Let's add a new layer. We'll call this one Sky. Now we're going to fill our sky layer in with a blue. So let's grab our paint can, and then we need to select our layer first, and then let's come over here and I have a blue selected. Now if you want the exact color that I'm using, you can go ahead and copy this number right here and fill it into your color picker, and it will bring up the same exact blue. So anytime I'm picking colors, just go ahead and pause the video and type that number in, and you'll get the same color. Now I have another blue. It's a little bit lighter and a little bit more green. We're going to select that one. There's its color right there, its color number. And now we are going to grab our brush, and then let's make the size 1500. That's good. Okay. Actually, let's bring it down a bit. Let's bring it to 800. That's better. Now we want to bring down the opacity on our layer so that we can see our drawing underneath it. So this is going to be kind of like where the sun is coming from behind the mountains, kind of like a sunrise. So I think it's going to be right almost centered with the castle, but a little bit off. Now let's put some clouds in our sky. The first thing we want to do is we want to add a new layer, and let's rename it Clouds. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to dot the page with a circle brush with a soft edge, and we're going to use the same color we used for the highlight in the sky. Whoops. So we'll just begin doing that, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to achieve some shapes that look sort of like clouds, but they don't have to be perfect. They're going to be very stylized, so don't worry if they don't look exactly like real clouds. It's kind of the idea. Alright, now that might look kind of funny looking, but what we're going to do is we're going to bring down the opacity to about 25%, so they're really light. You can hardly even see them. I'm thinking we're going to add one more layer of clouds, just to give it some depth. So we'll do the same thing again, but this time this cloud needs to look a little bit different than the first cloud that we created. Good. Let's bring his opacity down to about 25% also. And there you go. There's our clouds. Let's put some mountains out on our horizon line. So first, before we do that, let's merge our two cloud layers. The way you do that is you'll click on both layers using Control, and then you'll right click on them. Then you'll come to merge layers and select that, and that will merge your two layers together. So now they're one layer. Now let's add a new layer and call it mountains. Now let's bring our values layer to the very top, and let's put it on multiply so we can see our color and our drawing at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to trace our mountain line. So we'll grab our lasso tool, make sure you're on the polygonal lasso tool, and we're going to trace the same basic shape that we have here. Now, on our mountains layer, let's fill that in. We're going to use this blue right here, but we're going to darken it just a titch bit. So come down a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and fill that in. Select out of that. Now, let's bring our value layer back down, and there's our mountains. Now these mountains are really far away, so they'd probably be a little bit out of focus, so we're going to add a blur effect to them. So let's select our mountain layer, and then we'll come up to filters, blur, and then box blur. And now we can select how blurry we want our mountains to look. So right now we have it at 2. Let's try 5. It's a little bit too blurry. Let's try 4. Alright, let's go with 3. Alright, that looks good. Let's organize our background now. So we have 4 layers. We have our values layer, our sky layer, our cloud layer, and our mountains layer. Our cloud layer lost its name when we merged the 2 layers, so let's go ahead and rename that first. And now what we want to do is we want to be able to turn off whole sections of our background at once without having to individually turn them off. And so we're going to break our background up into different sections. So the first section we'll have is the background section, which will be our sky, our clouds, and our mountains. So let's go ahead and select all of those by holding down Shift, but starting with the top one, holding down Shift, and coming down to the bottom layer we want to select, and it'll select all of those. And now let's add a folder, which is this little icon next to the new layer icon. And that will group those all into one folder. So now you'll see we have one folder there. If we click on it, it opens up, and we have a whole bunch, or we have all of our layers inside that folder. Now let's name that folder background, because this is the background to our background. Let's create our islands now. So first what we want to do is we want to create a new layer. Then let's grab our values layer and bring it to the top so we can see our drawing. Now let's use our lasso tool and we'll trace out one of these tectonic plates. Alright, that should be good. Now let's grab this purple color. There's its color right there. And we're going to fill our selection in. Oops. Make sure we're on our new layer. And let's bring our layer in front of our background so we can see it. Now I'm going to use this pink color, and with my brush I'm going to paint the edges of my tectonic plate. It's kind of hard to see because our drawing is turned on, so let's turn him off. And then we just want to get the very edges of our plate. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's a rock, it's part of the earth, so it can be pretty organic. Alright, let's unselect out of that. Now let's create a folder, and we're going to call this folder Island. Now let's drag our new creation into our folder. And now what we're going to do is we're going to copy our tectonic plate. Now let's paste them in. So now we have two tectonic plates. Now let's turn our drawing back on. And let's bring it beneath our tectonic plates. So what we're going to do now is, using Control T, we are going to rotate and change the size of these tectonic plates, and we're just going to continue copying and pasting and putting them into place. So I'll show you what I mean. So with this guy right here, we need him to kind of fit more into our drawing of the next tectonic plate next to this tectonic plate. So we'll go Command T, and by doing that we can rotate it, and we can also change the size of it. That's probably about good. We'll paste another one. Now some of these are wider, stubbier, and some of them are a lot skinnier. So continue pasting these tectonic plates and reshaping and sizing them to fit into their spots. And once you've completed that, we can go ahead and move on to creating our floating islands. Great. Now you've created the base for your island. What we want to do next is we have all of these layers with each individual tectonic plate on it, and we don't want that. So all of these layers should be inside of your island folder. What we're going to do is we are going to select all of them by starting with the top layer, coming all the way down to the bottom layer, hold down Shift and select it, and that will select all of your layers. Now we're going to right click them and go merge layers. Now all of those layers have become one layer, as you can see. If we turn it off, it turns all of them off. Now we want to go ahead and do the same thing for our floating islands. So go ahead and paste, and these guys will have to be shrunken down quite a bit, but we'll just do the same exact thing. We'll just reshape them and size them and put them into place. And don't worry if they are coming off this edge. We'll go ahead and delete those by using our lasso tool. And you can just go ahead and delete. So go ahead and do that. Make sure that you create all of your tectonic plates in a new folder and name it Floating Island 1 for this island, and then create a new folder and call it Floating Island 2. So go ahead and continue doing that. Make sure that you create 2 new folders for each floating island. Now that you've laid out all of your tectonic plates, you should have them broken up into individual folders. So we have our island folder, our floating island folder number 1, and our floating island number 2. The next step is to fill in all the empty spaces that we have within our islands. So starting with our island folder, let's add a new layer, and let's put this layer behind the island. Now using our original purple, we're going to fill in all the empty spaces. And now we'll just go ahead and do that for all of our islands. Okay, now we can go ahead and merge both those layers. And we'll do the same for our island. Now what we'll do is we will hold down Control and click our layer, and that will select everything on that layer. Now what we want to do is add a new layer above that using our brush tool with a soft edge. We are going to use our purple to fade out our light pink color, like so. Alright, that's good. The bottom of our floating islands all have the same shape, so we want to fix that by using our lasso tool. Let's come to our floating island 1, and we will just cut out of the bottoms of our tectonic plates by deleting them. And that will just change up the bottom of the tectonic plates a bit. Let's come to our other tectonic plate, or other floating island. Lastly, we will add a transparent coat of this pink color over all of our islands. So we'll start with our first island, and while we're here, let's merge these two layers. So we'll select our island, then we'll add a new layer, and using our fill tool, we're going to fill it with our original pink. Unselect out of that, and let's do that for all of our islands. Add a new layer above it, and then go ahead and fill. Do it one more time. A new layer. Alright, now what we'll do is we're going to bring the opacity down on all of these pink colors. So holding down Control or Command on a Mac, select those pink layers and then bring their opacity down. We're going to bring their opacity down to about 40%. Right about there is good. And now we have the base for all of our islands. Let's go ahead and create some texture for our islands. I've created a new document that's 1920 by 1080. Let's add a new layer to it and make sure that we have the color black selected. Now using our brush tool, we're going to create some texture for our islands. Let's make sure we're on a hard edge brush, and let's make sure that the brush is all the way up to 1000%. Now we want our brush size to be pretty small. Now what we'll do is we're just going to do some random squiggles on our canvas, and we want to do this with a couple of different brush sizes. Now the smaller our brush gets, the closer the spacing becomes. So when we get really small, we want to manually place our spots on our page. Now we'll do a couple of big ones. Maybe too big. Alright, that's good. Now let's copy this layer, and then we're going to paste them back into our background document. Now let's shrink this layer down so it fits over our island, like so. Now let's move this layer into our island folder. We'll open him up, and now we're going to select this layer and everything in it, and then add a new layer. And in this new layer, we're going to fill it with the color white using our fill tool. Now let's grab that layer and bring it beneath our original layer, and then unselect out of that. Then using our grab and move tool, we're going to use the arrows on our keyboard to nudge that layer down just a bit, like this. Just enough so a little bit of that white is showing. Now we can merge those two layers together. Then select one of the two layers that have the shape of your island. Then come back to your spotted layer and press Ctrl-Shift-I on your keyboard, and that will invert the selection. Then hit delete, and it'll delete all of the spots outside of your island. Now let's change our island layer to overlay. Then let's bring the opacity down. %, should about do it. And now we have some nice texture for our island. Go ahead and do that on both the other islands, and we can move on with the course. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and label our layers, because right now they have no labels. So we'll call the base. Let's call the pink layer pink coat, and let's call the spotted layer texture. Now let's do that for all of them. Now that we have labels on all of our layers, we're going to start shading our islands. So let's start with our ground island first, and we'll select its shape, and then let's add a new layer above our texture, and then using black and our brush, it doesn't really matter the shape, we're going to fill in our first tectonic plate. Now we want to make sure that our opacity is to 50, as you can see right here. Now we're going to go over that one again, but we're also going to go over the one next to it, like so. Now we're going to do that one more time, but we're going to go to the third tectonic plate. Now let's start on the other end. Now let's lower the opacity. About 40% should be good. Now we'll do the same for our floating island. Turn down that opacity. And we're going to add some shading on the underside of the grass that will be on top of our floating islands. This way it gives it a nice, let's bring down the size. This will give a nice shadow underneath our grass. We'll do the same for the top. Now let's do the same for our last island. Now we'll bring down that opacity. Lastly, we're going to add some shadow underneath the bottom of our floating islands because the light source is coming from above. So naturally, there wouldn't be very much light underneath our floating islands. So we'll go ahead and create a new layer. Select our shape. And using our brush tool again, we're just going to add some shadow underneath each tectonic plate. Like so. And then we'll bring that opacity down. And let's do the same for the rest of them. New layer. And the reason why we're putting this layer on the reason why we're creating a new layer for these shadows is because we want to be able to control them separately from the other shadows. Bring his opacity down. Great, that looks good. All of our shading is done for our islands. Before we go any further, let's label our layers. So we can now go ahead and merge our two shadow layers. And let's name the layer Shadows. And we'll do that for all of our layers. Now we want to change the color of our shadows. So right now it's just a plain black shadow, but we want our shadows to feel a little bit cool. So we are going to change the levels on it to bring them to more of a blue color. And the way we do that is we'll select them Then we'll come to our levels, which is this little guy right here. Then we'll come to our blue, and we will slide this across to change the levels of blue, and we want more blue, so we're going to slide it a little bit towards the blue side. And we want to take some of that red out because we don't want it to look very purple, so we're going to take a little bit of red out. Like that. And now we just want to do that on the rest of our layers. Now that we've changed the colors on all of our shadows, we're going to create some grass for our floating islands. So let's start with our larger floating island first. So what we'll do is we'll add a new layer. Then we'll grab our brush. And using this bluish green color, we are going to paint in a solid shape for our grass. This will act as the base color and sort of as the shadow for the grass. You'll see what I mean here in a second. Alright, now we are going to grab this lighter green color and we're going to shrink our brush size down. Now let's go ahead and zoom in so we can really see what we're doing. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start painting strokes that look like grass, just like that. We'll just continue to do this on both layers of grass. And you want to make sure they look a little random, a little organic, so some of them will crisscross. Now we'll move on to our top layer, our top level, I mean. Alright, that's good. Maybe a little bit more down here. We really want this grass, I think, to be hanging over a lot. Very overgrown and sagging. Alright. Now let's grab a lighter color and let's nudge it a bit more towards the yellow side. And we'll use that for the highlight for our grass. We'll just start painting like so. Move to the second layer, level. Now we've created a really cool grass look. Now go ahead and do that on your second island, and then we can move on to the next part of our course. I hope you guys liked this tutorial and it helped you a lot. If you really want to take this course, click the link in the description and it'll take you to a page where you can get it for free. Also, go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you want more videos like this. And as always, have a good life.